This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Nebyat, and today we have some entertaining and exciting topics to talk about today in this podcast. Obviously, we're going to be bringing my UFC 261 reactions, as well as my reaction to Chris Paul ending the New York Knicks 9-game winning streak, along with the NBA play-in tournament and how some teams are looking right now with only 10 or so games left for each team in the Eastern and Western Conference. And also some other stuff to talk about. Some NBA games going on Tuesday, April 27th. You have the Dallas Mavericks going against the Golden State Warriors at 9:30. That's on TNT. You also have Brooklyn against Toronto. That'll also be a fun and entertaining game. That will be at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Both of those times are Eastern Times to keep in mind. But I'm going to be watching, and I'm going to be excited to see Stephen Curry going against Luka Doncic. Both two of them are MVP candidates, in my opinion. Obviously, I think Stephen Curry should be the MVP of this season, and I will not be mad if Stephen Curry or Nikola Jokic or Joel Embiid wins it, because all three of them are equally as deserving to win it. But with that, let's get into my UFC 261 reactions, as we had three main cards this past weekend with Valentina Shevchenko versus Jessica Andre, Zhang Wei Li versus Rose Namajunas, and Kamaru Usman versus Jorge Masvidal. And with that, another incident that happened during UFC 261 that I think is important to bring up right now was Ian Weidman versus Hall in that fight. Obviously, if you were watching the fight live, you saw how Weidman broke his leg and everything. I suggest not looking this video up if you are not good with broken bones or blood or anything. Definitely not the video to be watching. But with that, I just hope Weidman the best of luck in his future. Obviously, it's going to be probably a year, maybe more, till we see him back on the mat. There was, I think he posted a photo of him in a hospital bed the other day, and he did have successful surgery, so that's good. But it's going to be a long, long time till we see Weidman on the map. And something about that Weidman Hall fight that was also shocking was that it's the quickest fight to happen with without any hit or trades or anything like that. I don't know my UFC terms there, but it was ended in the first round with only 17 seconds. Pretty quick, but another just quick fact to educate you guys on. But with that, let's get into the first title bout and my reaction of it. You had Valentina Shevchenko versus Jessica Andre. Valentina entered the match 20-3. Jessica Andre entered the match 21-8 or 21-8. And with this is going to be a great fight to kick off these title bouts. Shevchenko, obviously, one of the baddest women on the planet, one of the most feared women on the planet. With that, she's the only person that can wave off Amanda Nunes and just be like, yeah, I just want to continue my career. And with that, a lot of people think that her next fight will be or should be with Nunes. But with that, I just want to bring in mind that they are not in the same weight class. I believe that Nunes would have to lose some weight, or Shevchenko would have to gain some weight. Either way, it would be both. It would be hard for both of these fighters to get to their other partner's weight class or division. And with that, Shevchenko sits in the woman flyweight division, and Amanda Nunes, I believe, currently sits in the bantamweight division and featherweight divisions. So I don't know what the weight difference is on the top of my head, but it would definitely be an entertaining fight. I believe both of these fighters have fought each other before. I believe 2 times. The last time that they fought was back in September 9th, 2017, and Nunes won by decision in round 5 against Valentina. And the last fight before that, Valentina or Amanda won again. This time it was not a title fight, but it did go to decision again and lasted 3 rounds. But with that, something that I forgot to mention, the first fight between Nunes and Shevchenko was in the bantamweight division. So it's going to be interesting to see if Shevchenko really puts on some weight to try to get back at Amanda Nunes right now. But currently right now, Shevchenko is on a roll right now as a fighter in her flyweight division. I mean, when you look at her past fights and everything, she's just been very, very dominant in her division and how she fights in general. So with that, let's get into the fight a little bit between Andre and Shevchenko. Shevchenko obviously was the favorite in this fight, and Andre was the underdog. Andre, having her experience in past fights and everything, I thought that this fight would go to judge's decision, but Shevchenko, when she walked out for her fight, and I saw this look in her eyes that just showed me that she just didn't care about anything else that was going around her. It seemed like she had headphones in and was just beelining it for that. She wasn't really running, but she was just walking to the octagon, and she just looked bad, crazy. I mean, and I mean that in the most respectable way I can. She looked amazing out there, and when I saw her, I was just like, man, I'm gonna have to rethink how this fight might go. And I thought that this fight would go to the judge's decision, but I was wrong, man. This fight went to Shevchenko, and she won in the second round with 3:19. 3 minutes and 19 seconds in the match, and off a knockout and TKO. I mean, she had Andre in a submission, and Andre was to the point where she had both of her hands tied, I would say, and she just couldn't protect her face, and Shevchenko was just dealing blows to her while she was on the mat, and the judge obviously had to call it because, I mean, you can't do anything else when you're in that position. And I give respect for Andre. I mean, she's going against one of the best female fighters in the game right now in Shevchenko. And I know Andre has her fair share of fights in general. But going against a person like Valentina Shevchenko, I mean, it was something else, man. And it was interesting because when I was doing my research on this for this match in general and Andre's previous fights and everything, she beat her colleague Rose Namajunas following her last outing, and Namajunas obviously losing the belt, and Andre obviously winning it, and then the belt being passed around and everything, and Rose Namajunas being like, I'm fine with not having the belt, you know, it's all that stress and everything off of my shoulders. And ever since then, she's been preparing for the Zhang Weili fight that we'll get into here soon. But with that, it's going to be interesting to see when or who Valentina Shevchenko will fight next. But with that, let's get into the next fight. That is Rose Namajunas versus Zhang Weili. Rose Namajunas winning this off of a TKO. And something I want to point out with just the two fighters in Valentina or Rose Namajunas and Kamaru Usman was that they both had the same coach at their side while they were trying to prepare for this fight. And their coach was, give me one moment here, was anyways, I couldn't find the name on the guy, but they both had the same striking coach, and if you know how the Usman Masvidal fight went, it went pretty similar to the Namajunas versus Zhang Weili fight. And with that, I just wanted to point out that Zhang Weili, obviously having dealt with her problems with Asian hate and everything, is just tough to see. But obviously being the first Chinese champion in the UFC, definitely something to hang on with. But she took a big loss with this fight versus Rose Namajunas. And something that I did know was that Namajunas' nickname was Thug Rose Namajunas, and I was just like, man, that's pretty cool. And with that, I mean, she really prepared for this fight. I mean, she really gave it her all. It was just tough to see a dominant fighter like Zhang Weili go down like she did. Obviously, I saw her previous fight, and that was just a bloody fight between those two ladies. And she was dealing with racism in that fight against her opponent. I forget what her opponent's name was, but she was definitely not very nice to her before the fight. And with that, I mean, 100%. The last fighter was Johanna. I don't know how to say her last name, but she was definitely looking forward to this fight versus Namajunas. You know, I thought this was going to go 5 rounds, but with that, I mean, Rose Namajunas really showed why she's one of the best women's fighters right now. And I mean, at first I thought she looked nervous. I thought she looked a little bit timid, so to say, before the fight. Obviously, Zhang Weili not showing any emotion whatsoever before entering the ring, and I really thought she would have her. But there was this one moment, this one instant moment. They were both just standing at the center of the ring, and Namajunas was about to throw a kick, and Zhang Weili didn't know whether if it was going to be a body kick or a head kick, and she anticipated that body kick, and she backed up, but Namajunas just delivered a striking head blow to Zhang Weili, and the rest is history after that. And I mean, it's tough. It's tough to be the champion for so long, and then losing it in that quick of a moment is crazy. And you saw the emotion of Zhang Wei Li after that knockout. She was very, very disappointed, and she won the fight and everything, and I was confused, and I thought the fight maybe should have continued a little bit more, but it clearly was called the right way by the referee, and I wouldn't have called it either way. Obviously, it's tough because I picked Zhang over Namajunas, and Namajunas obviously working alongside Kamaru Usman, and both of them had a point to prove in these fights. I mean, people were thinking that Namajunas was not really fit to be a champion, so to say, and she really proved that versus Zhang Wei Li, and proved that she's only going to get better with the more fights she has. But with that, let's get into this next fight. And the last fight of the evening of Kamaru Usman versus Jorge Masvidal. And this was, oh my God, I called this right on the number, ladies and gentlemen. I called it right on the number, and I said that Jorge Masvidal would regret his words by saying that Kamaru Usman does not hit hard, saying that, it must suck to not be able to hurt a person with those fists of yours, and oh my God. And if you didn't know, the last fight between these two guys was on a 6-day notice. They both accepted on a 6-day notice. Obviously, it's tough for Masvidal to accept and Kamaru Usman, the champion, to accept at the time. And on Usman's side, he had apparently a broken nose. And then obviously for Masvidal, he already had a built-in excuse with not being able to have enough time to prepare for this fight. But also Usman didn't either. I mean, he was conditioned, you can say that, but for the most part, you got to give the same excuse to both of these guys with a 6-day notice on a fight. I mean, it's pretty tough. But Usman won that fight off a unanimous decision, and after that, he beat Gilbert Burns and silenced that. Burns being the guy he was supposed to fight, but he got COVID that time, and Masvidal substituted for him, and the rest is history. But with this fight, obviously, Masvidal talking his crap, and Usman really, as a champion, having to step up at this moment, 100% did with every action he took. And it was in the second round that Usman delivered his knockout punch versus Masvidal, and this is something that I recommend my viewers to watch. There was no blood involved, don't get me wrong, but when you watch it in slow motion, it's so satisfying to watch as a casual fanatic of the UFC and boxing and fighting in general. And seeing that blow that Usman did, dodge the hand of Masvidal, and then deliver that huge striking blow with that right hand. And you just see Masvidal just get knocked out and just goes down. And sees the water go off his face and everything. Oh my God. I know that Usman was very, very satisfied with that knockout, and I was as well. I mean, that's something that if you're a casual fighter and you're just watching the fight for just funsies, it's so nice to see, especially when someone like Masvidal is just talking his crap, talking his talk, and seeing Usman talking his talk too. But the difference between Usman and Masvidal is that Usman can talk the talk and walk the walk. And the same thing with Namajunas. I mean, Usman is getting better and better the more he fights. And with that, it's going to be interesting to see Usman's next fighter. And I think that his next fighter, I believe, that Dana White, the owner of the UFC, said that that the next person up next is Kobe Covington. Obviously, something to look at is Conor McGregor and his comments to Kamaru Usman, saying that he wants to fight Usman, but McGregor already has a fight with Dustin Poirier on July, I believe July 10th or June 10th. I'm going to have to double check that, but with that, it's going to be interesting to see if the Kobe Covington fight and if Usman wins that, and let's say McGregor wins his fight versus Dustin Poirier. It's going to be interesting to see if these two get face to face with each other in the ring, because these are obviously two of the best. Obviously, Usman being one of the best fighters out right now, and McGregor being one of the most recognizable fighters right now. Is definitely going to be selling some tickets and some pay-per-views, that's for sure. And I'm sure Dana White would be very happy if that were to come to it. But as of right now, McGregor obviously has a fight right now, but it's definitely going to be interesting to see when Covington and Usman meet up. Usman beating Covington already, and seeing how Usman gets better every day is definitely going to be tough for a person like Covington to beat Usman, especially last time these two fought. Covington got his jaw broken by Usman, and Usman won off of that. But with that, that's going to be it for my first segment here. Next segment coming up, I'm going to be talking about Chris Paul and how he ended the Knicks' 9-game winning streak, and to also talk about how Derrick Rose being one of the best pickups and maybe the best pickup of the trade deadline, and how he helped, or how he is helping the Knicks right now, and how cold is it that the Knicks are in the playoff race, ladies and gentlemen. They are sitting 4th overall in the East right now, and obviously, as a Heat fan, I'm happy for them. I mean, they're doing well, and basketball is better off with the Knicks doing better. But stick around for the end of the podcast, too. I'm going to be having my NFL draft predictions with picks 1 through 12, starting with the Jacksonville Jaguars and ending with the Philadelphia Eagles.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
The title via KO and TKO, and Valentina Shevchenko beating Jessica Andre via KO and TKO. And there's 3 tough title fights on last Saturday. I was 2 for 1 on my predictions. I predicted that Usman would knock out Masvidal, and I said that Shevchenko would beat Jessica Andre via KO, but excuse me, that voice cracked. But Rose Namajunas versus Zhang Weili. I thought Zhang Weili would beat Namajunas in a the judge's decision, but obviously Namajunas showing her dominance once again in the UFC world, and showing why she's one of the best female fighters out there. But with that, let's get into the next topic at hand, and that's a NBA game that happened on Tuesday or Monday, April 26th. It was the Phoenix Suns against the New York Knicks in New York. Obviously, New York being one of the hottest teams right now in basketball, winning 9 straight games. But With this game, CP3 ended the Knicks' 9-game winning streak. Chris Paul making one of the biggest circus shots I've ever seen in my life against Julius Randle. And obviously Devin Booker had a great showing, had 33 points, 14 to 26 from the field, 1 of 4 from three-point range, and 4 of 6 from the free throw line. Definitely showed up in the mecca of basketball. And with that, Julius Randle, 18 points, Derrick Rose, 22 points. And with this, I wanted to bring up a couple of topics that I want to kind of entertain with you folks, and that's the first topic, obviously, being, is Derrick Rose the best pickup of the trade deadline? And with that, let's explore the standings, the NBA standings right now, and let's see what teams really went all in on certain players for the trade deadline to try to make the playoffs and whatnot. So with that, let's start with the Eastern Conference. You have one of the teams that made a big effort in the trade deadline was the Chicago Bulls and getting Nikolai Vucevic right now. The Bulls sitting at the 11th seed right now, one game behind the Wizards for a play-in tournament. Right now, yesterday they beat the Miami Heat. Miami Heat, obviously a sad game for Heat fans, but they beat us and getting closer to the play-in tournament because of that. But obviously Vucevic, I would say, has done an okay job right now with the Bulls. You know, he hasn't done a tremendous job necessarily, but when I look at these stats, I see Vucevic leading the way in that Miami win with 24 points. I see him with 18 points against Charlotte in a win, 29 points, 25 points. And this is all while Zach LaVine is out. He's been out for a little bit with health and safety protocols right now. But I would say that Vucevic has been a good factor for the Bulls right now. Obviously, hasn't been getting the Bulls into the play-in tournament right now, but they beat Miami last night, so they're getting closer and closer day by day. But with that, let's go into the next team that made a move in the trade deadline. That's my Miami Heat. Now, we picked up Victor Oladipo right now, who at first looked like a good addition to the team right now for the Heat culture. Obviously, the Heat preaching that you play both ends of the floor. You see players like Jimmy Butler, doing that. You see players like Bam Adebayo doing that. And then, obviously, Trevor Ariza, who's another great pickup for us, who's been starting for us for most of the season, or has been starting for us ever since the trade deadline, has been hitting transition threes, getting loose ball, getting loose ball steals and everything like that, and just doing all the above to make sure the Heat try to get into that 6th spot and out of the play-in tournament. But with those two players that I stated, I think that Ariza has been a better pickup than Oladipo. Oladipo, obviously, he's been great for us, doing things on the offensive and defensive end, but he's just been injured way too much of this season ever since we picked him up, and that kind of raises a concern for me in the longevity of him if we're going to sign him for a long-term deal or something like that. But with that, I mean, if I had to grade, let me grade these players that I just stated. So with Vucevic, I give the Bulls a B, B minus maybe, for getting Vucevic right now. Obviously, I expected them to at least be in the play-in tournament. I thought that a team like the Charlotte Hornets would drop out of the play-in tournament and out of the playoffs ever since LaMelo Ball and Gordon Hayward got injured. There's the two best players on that team, but obviously Terry Rozier, Devontae Graham, and Miles Bridges and company have been holding the load for that Hornets team. But will that be enough? We'll see. But without the Heat, I give them a B minus. Same thing as Vucevic for getting Trevor Ariza. Ariza is being a great role player for us. Same thing with Vucevic. I would maybe upgrade Vucevic to a B plus, maybe. I don't know. That might be pushing it, but I think B minus is a good range for grading the Bulls pickup for Vucevic. But for Oladipo, I give the Heat a hard C. It's just he's just been out for just such a long time and everything. So, and his longevity is just a question to me as well. And we'll see if he's even able to come back for the regular season. There's not many games left in the NBA regular season, and only have so many more games before the NBA play-in tournament, NBA playoffs. And if we're able to get out of that play-in tournament, that would be perfect to try to see where Oladipo's at health-wise. But next up, let's talk about the Boston Celtics and their pickup of certain players like Evan Fournier and company, but that was really the only major pickup that they got. They released Chef Teague and everything. But with that, I mean, Fournier hasn't really been doing much for the Celtics team. It really seems like it's been Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Kemba Walker has been stepping up as well too. You see a person like Robert Williams, who's been stepping up as well. He's been out for a little bit here, but he's been good ever since they traded away Daniel Tice to the Bulls. And with that, I give their rating of Fournier, that Fournier pickup, probably a C minus. Maybe it's just he really, in my opinion, has been doing well for the Celtics, and it really has been Jason Tatum, Kemba Walker, or Jaylen Brown to hold that team accountable and to try to rack up these wins. And when you look at the total scoring in the past couple of games, I mean, ever since that Fournier pickup, I've never seen him on the high points, high rebounds, or high assist board. I take that back. Friday, April 23rd, he got 5 assists versus Brooklyn, and in a loss, that is. But hopefully he can try to cement his role in that Boston Celtics team coming up in this NBA playoffs. But with that, like I said, this has been the Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Kemba Walker show in Boston right now. And then after that is the person that I wanted to talk about, and my whole reason for doing this is Derrick Rose. For the New York Knicks, Derrick Rose has been, just a great mentor and a great player for the New York Knicks, just in general. I mean, when you look at it, ever since he got on this staff, I mean, I feel like he's elevated R.J. Barrett's game. I feel like he's helped Emmanuel Quickley, a rookie who a lot of people had as D minus going into the draft, has just been sprouting like a leaf and has been doing the most for that team. And for the most part, I mean, when you look at Derrick Rose's accomplishments and everything, what he's really done in this league, he's been doing a great job, putting the Knicks on that map. And give credit to, Julius Randle and Tom Thibodeau as well. Randle obviously stepping up his game, but Thibodeau obviously coaching this team and pushing them really hard to the point where they won 9 straight games versus Memphis, Toronto, Los Angeles, New Orleans, Dallas, at Dallas too, that is, New Orleans again, Charlotte, Atlanta, and then Toronto is this something that you really got to applaud and look at and say, okay, R.J. Barrett has been balling, Julius Randle has been balling, and you expect those guys to go off and score a lot of points, but Derrick Rose has also been a tremendous get for this New York Knicks basketball team. And his season stats right now, he's been averaging 14 points, 2 rebounds, and 4 assists. And I believe he's coming off the bench. I believe the starting lineup for the Knicks are R.J. Barrett, Elfrid Payton. I believe Reggie Bullock is in there too, along with Julius Randle. And I don't know. Maybe Rose does start because I forgot that Mitchell Robinson's out of playing contention because he had an injury. Oh, Nerlens Noel is the center for that team. So I believe it goes Elfrid Payton, R.J. Barrett, Reggie Bullock, Julius Randle, and then Nerlens Noel to round out that starting five. And then obviously you have Derrick Rose, Obi Toppin coming off the bench, Emmanuel Quickly as well. Quickly can, come off the bench or be a starter. You also have Kevin Knox, Taj Gibson, Alec Burks, who has been injured now, but should be coming back to the next lineup soon. Don't get scared, New York fans. It should be fine. But with that, I mean, just a tremendous get in general. I know I left some teams out of the West, like a Denver Nuggets team that had a great pickup in Aaron Gordon ever since that Jamal Murray injury. This Denver team hasn't moved in this Western Conference. I mean, they've been sitting at that 4 spot for a very, very long time, and that's give credit to Mike Malone, Nikola Jokic, front runner for MVP and company. Also, Michael Porter Jr. has been going off too as well. But with that, I mean, that Aaron Gordon pickup was very necessary to try to get someone who is athletic, can move around, defend, and just do all the above. But with that, not many other noticeable pickups off of the trade deadline on the top of my head. Don't remember the Warriors getting anyone. Don't remember the Blazers. Oh, the Blazers got Norman Powell. I knew I was forgetting someone. But for the most part, the Blazers haven't been doing that well. They've been having a lot of tough losses. I mean, they're on a 5-game losing streak. With these games, they've lost their most recent game. They lost by 7 points, and then after that, lost by 2 points, both by the Grizzlies. Lost to the Nuggets by 1, lost to the Clippers by 1, lost to the Hornets by 8, lost to the Celtics by 1. I mean, it's been a tough month for the Portland Trailblazers trying to get it out of that play-in tournament right now and try to get into the NBA playoff picture in that 6th seed. But with that, another point that I wanted to make about this New York Knicks basketball team was that the fact that they're in the play-in tournament or playoff race, I should say, and it's just something that I'm very happy to see, because if you're a fan of basketball or anything like that, I know LeBron James recently tweeted about this, and there's a bunch of other people on Twitter as well, mostly New York Knicks fans, that are coming out and saying, look, we got a great team right now. I mean, Julius Randle, all-star year, R.J. Barrett, who I have on my fantasy team, that I've been monitoring him for this whole entire season, and he has not been a disappointment whatsoever for me in my fantasy league. I currently sit 2nd overall in my fantasy league. It's currently the playoffs right now, and I expect him to go off as he should. But with that, I mean, this New York Knicks basketball team can defend. They can score the basketball at any given point in time. They have scorers like Randall, who can, be just an absolute bully on the post and mow over anyone. You also have R.J. Barrett, like I said, who can be a great slasher and create shots for himself. Then you have Derrick Rose, who I really don't need to go into. The name speaks for itself. Previous MVP, one of the best players of our generation. But with that, I mean, with this loss versus the Phoenix Suns, it also raises a question that the Phoenix Suns are also close to the first or number 1 overall seed in the West. And with that, I mean, you have to give credit where credit's due with Chris Paul. And with this, I'm going to make a very, very, very bold statement right now. And with the 3 point guards, the 3 best point guards in our league, and I don't think this is really arguable, it's Steph, Dame, and CP3. You can choose whatever order that is. With my order, I think it's Steph, CP3, and Dame. The reason why I have CP3 ahead of Dame is that CP3 or Chris Paul, I should say, that's what I mean by CP3. He just makes any team that he gets on better. a lot of people last year thought that the Thunder wouldn't be anything when they got Chris Paul. What did they do? They make the playoffs. And they take a Houston Rockets team with James Harden and Russell Westbrook and company to 7 games. And, players like Lou Dort, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and company, players who not a lot of people, necessarily respect or necessarily know about, are players who are now in the league right now. And people know how great a defender Lou Dort is. I mean, he's probably one of the best, or probably is the best on-ball defender in the league right now, along with, Ben Simmons. And when Kawhi, when he necessarily cares about defense, I'm not saying that he doesn't, but seems to be focused on the offensive end more, which, I mean, as he should, he's one of the best players in the league. But if he tries on defense, I mean, he's obviously a menace to go against. Also, Jimmy Butler's also good too. Bam Adebayo's getting up there as well. But with that, I mean, it's just cool to see how Chris Paul can just really shape up any team that he's on. I mean, the only one team that we could really knock him on is the Clippers, and you can debate that they had injuries down the line, and that injuries are really, unfortunate and really unpreventable at the end of the day. They just happen, and you can't really control them. You can try to stay healthy as much as you can. Look at LeBron. He says he spends $1 million on his body, but still gets injured, and has an ankle injury. So if that shows you anything, it shows you that some injuries you just can't help and can't protect. But with that, the New York Knicks obviously losing or having their 9-game winning streak snapped against the New York Knicks by a score of 118-110. Devin Booker once again having 33 points. Chris Paul having the ridiculous shot, the dagger, to end the winning streak of the New York Knicks. And I mean, it's tough as if you're a Knicks fan to see that shot go down. But I mean, give credit where credit's due. Chris Paul is a legend in this league, man, and I'll say it every single time I bring up this man's name. He's the best leader in the NBA and can easily turn a team into a playoff team in a season. No questions about it. But with that, with my next segment, I'm going to be bringing up the NBA play-in tournament to see where some teams are at, how it is on the Eastern Conference and on the Western Conference. And to end this segment, or to end the podcast, I should say, I'm going to be talking about the NFL draft and my predictions for every team in the NFL draft, starting with the Jacksonville Jaguars and ending with the Philadelphia Eagles. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. That's coming up soon on the GSMC Sports Podcast.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
The same record, but the Knicks have the tiebreaker against the Hawks, so that's why they sit at the 4th seed. Now, let's get into the NBA play-in tournament and what my next segment will be about. So, with the NBA play-in tournament on the Eastern Conference side, you have the Knicks sitting at the 4th seed, the Hawks sitting at the 5th seed, the Celtics sitting at the 6th seed, and now all those teams are safe from the play-in tournament. Now, the teams that are in the play-in tournament and are trying to get out of it or stay in it, doesn't matter. But the Heat are at the 7th seed, Hornets at the 8th seed, Pacers at the 9th seed, and Wizards at the 10th seed. And then at the 11th and 12th seed, the two teams in the East that are really close to the play-in tournament but aren't in yet are the Bulls and the Raptors, and they both have the same record and are equally and are the same games behind the Wizards. So they're one game behind the Wizards for that 10th spot. And then if you switch it over on the Western Conference side, a very, very different conference. You have the Dallas Mavericks at the 6th seed. Then you have the Blazers at the 7th seed, the Grizzlies at the 8th seed, Spurs at the 9th seed, and then the Warriors at the 10th seed. And then the one lone team in the West that I think has a chance to make it into this play-in tournament, but they will have to win their next couple of games here and really buckle down, is the New Orleans Pelicans, and they are 4 games behind the Warriors for that 10th seed. So with this, when you look at it, you look at teams like the Heat, who won the Eastern Conference last year as a 5th seed, who are trying to make it back to the Eastern Conference Finals and the Finals in general. Not really looking so good as they sit at the 7th seed right now and are set to face the Charlotte Hornets at the 8th seed and try to make it into the NBA playoffs. And that would certainly be a shocker for Heat fans to see their team go from the finals to 1 year to not even making the playoffs the next year. But with that, I mean, the Heat also have a half game difference between the Celtics for that 6th overall seed. And they could get a little bit, or a couple of spots higher than that. They could be the 5th seed or the 4th seed, depending on the Hawks or the Knicks lose their next couple of games. But with that, the Heat have lost some really, really bad games that could put them in the position where they're out of the play-in tournament. Those games being against the Chicago Bulls recently. They lost to them at home in their last game. And then the Atlanta Hawks, they lost to without Trae Young or Clint Capella. So those are 2 games that the Heat should easily have won, but they gave those games up. And then on the Western Conference side, obviously, when you look at the Golden State Warriors, think of Stephen Curry, and I don't think any team wants to play that man. Just seeing how he plays, I mean, I'm sure some coaches will have a strategy going in against the Warriors. Obviously, Steph might see more stage of the 2019 finals and seeing more box and one defensive strategies, meaning that there's only one real person that you should focus on a team like that, and that's obviously their best player, that being Stephen Curry. So it's going to be interesting to see where the Warriors kind of play out in this play-in tournament, if they're able to escape and benefit off this. And same thing with Dallas. I mean, they're at the 6th seed right now, but the Blazers are 1 game behind them for that 6th spot, and Blazers losing their last couple of games by a slim margin of points. So we'll see if Damian Lillard and company are able to kind of rally each other and get back up to the point that they should be. But with that, let's get into the reason why I wanted to make this segment and the play-in tournament in general, and why we should be thinking about why we should have this tournament for a little bit longer. So with this, you look at the past year, so to say, right? And you look at what COVID has done, not only to the United States, but as a whole world. It's definitely something that everyone can look at and say it's not enjoyable, it's not fun. You know, people are losing their lives, people are on hospital beds, you know, trying to fight for their life. And with this, with the play-in tournament, you see games in the regular season being canceled to COVID, you know, with multiple players on the team having COVID. Jason Tatum has been on the record saying that he has been sitting on the bench with a inhaler, trying to help his breathing out more. And Tatum, obviously, and the Boston Celtics in general, and that organization being a team that has faced COVID with their players and everything, and trying to get back to where they're at in their franchise. So with that, the NBA adopted this play-in tournament last year with the NBA bubble, and that really worked out because that was at the time that COVID was at its peak and people were worrying and everything, People were thinking it was the end of the world, getting as much toilet paper as they can. I will never forget that. But with this play-in tournament, the number 7 seed plays the number 8 seed and then receives the number 7 seed off of that. So the winner of that 7th and 8th seed gets the 7th seed overall. And then the number 9th seed and number 10 seed winner advances to play the loser of Game 1. And then the loser of Game 1, which is going to be playing the winner of Game 2 for that 8th seed. So the winner of that 7th and 8th seed goes on, makes the playoffs, is a 7th seed. Probably will play the Brooklyn Nets. And then the number 9 versus number 10 seed will have to play 2 games in order to get into the play-in or to try to get into the playoffs. And off of that game, that will be the first game. And then the next game, they'll play the loser of that 7th and 8th seed. So with that, right now, obviously on the Eastern Conference side, for the 7th and 8th seed, the Heat would play the Hornets, and then the Pacers would play the Wizards. The winner of the Heat versus Hornets goes on to be the 7th seed, and the loser of that game will play the winner of the Pacers and the Wizards. And whoever wins that game between whatever team makes it out, or whatever team loses and whatever team makes it out, the 9th and 10th seed will play each other, and then that team will be the 8th seed. And then on the Western Conference side, you will have the Blazers play the Grizzlies, the Spurs play the Warriors, and off of that, I'm just going to make a prediction right now. I think that the Heat will beat the Hornets. I am a Heat fan. I'm not ignoring that, but for the most part, I just trust Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, Eric Spoelstra, one of the best coaches in the game. I expect Victor Oladipo to be healthy and back then. I expect Tyler Herro, Duncan Robinson, and company to really ball out. Trevor Ariza too. And I think we will find a way to make it out of this play-in tournament. But as it stands right now, if we do play the Hornets today, I think we beat them 100%. And then the Pacers versus Wizards. This is a really, really tough game because when you look at it, the Pacers are a really, really gritty defensive team, and they've proven this in the past. Domantas Sabonis, their NBA All-Star, who has been having a great year. You look at Malcolm Brogdon, who's been having a great year as well for the Pacers. Karis LeVert, who they got off of a trade with Brooklyn. A three-team trade with Brooklyn, Indiana, and Houston that got him there. So with that, you're also facing a Wizards team that has one of the best scorers in the league, right behind Stephen Curry. This little margin behind Stephen Curry and Bradley Beal. And also Russell Westbrook, one of the greatest point guards to ever do it. Certainly a handful to control or contain. So with this, I feel like the Wizards will find a way to beat the Pacers. I think that Russell Westbrook, Bradley Beal, and company have just this swagger that they're just not going to be denied a playoff entry. And I think Bradley Beal's hungry for to try to get back into the playoffs. And I think that if the Wizards play the Pacers, like I said, I think the Wizards would win. But off of that, if the Wizards play the Hornets, I think the Wizards would win, and then they get the 8th seed. So my prediction is that the Heat will be the 7th seed if the playoffs happen today, play-in tournament happen today. The Heat would be the 7th seed, and the Wizards would be the 8th seed. Now, to go to the Western Conference, I think that the Blazers versus Grizzlies is a crazy matchup to have. The Grizzlies have been beating the Blazers lately. They beat them 2 straight times on a back-to-back. Something to look out for. Definitely, if these two teams play in the play-in tournament. But I mean, I'm taking Damian Lillard over Ja Morant any day of the week. And give me Norman Powell. Give me CJ McCollum and company. I think these guys will come out and really show why they deserve to be in the Western Conference. And I mean, if the Grizzlies play Dallas, I'm taking Dallas. I just don't think that the Grizzlies have what it takes to beat a team like a Dallas or the Blazers in a crucial moment like this in a play-in tournament. So take that as you will. And then Spurs versus Warriors, man. I just can't doubt Stephen Curry and his abilities and how great he is, plain and simple. And then Warriors versus Grizzlies. Ja Morant versus Stephen Curry, man. This is going to be tough, but I'm going to have to go with greatness. I'm going to have to stick with Stephen Curry at the end of the day, you know. He's too great to, like, bet against, you know, to predict against, you know. So with that, on the Western Conference side, I have the Blazers and the Warriors rounding out the play-in tournament. So with that, to try to get into why I think this play-in tournament is necessary is because of you know, COVID and everything and how many teams are missing games. Gives a chance for teams to have missed games and haven't really made up those games to really say and prove that they're in the play-in or that they should be in the playoffs. So according to the NBA's executive vice president of basketball strategy and analytics, Evan Wash, the tournament is expected to become permanent, as 24 teams are still in playoff contention this season. 24 is the highest we've ever seen in the history of the league, with a month left, by the way. Excuse me. But the new format allows 10 teams from each conference to have a chance to find themselves into the 8 playoff spots at the end of the season, which gives more teams hope as the season reaches its final weeks. The future of the play-in tournament, which has adopted on a 1-year trial basis, is a huge key, but given the impact it's already made, league sources expect easy approval to make it permanent. So with that, I mean, it seems like ever since the bubble, the NBA has been monitoring how well the play-in tournament has gone or will go. We'll see how well this play-in tournament goes, as we're going to have 4 teams play each other to try to get 2 spots. It's definitely going to be competitive between those guys going into the NBA playoffs, but I feel like it's very necessary nowadays because of COVID and everything that's going on. But another reason to try to 360 this and to see the other side of it and to see why we shouldn't have this is something that I thought about a little bit, and the only things that I thought of was that if the NBA goes back to 82 games, which they might because the NFL is going to 17 games, so I expect the NBA to go to 82 games, and if they do, then off of that, I just feel like if you have 82 games to prove why you should be in the playoffs, why should you play, 2-3 more games potentially to try to prove to yourself why you should be in the playoffs. If, you're a Miami Heat, for instance, or if you're a Dallas Maverick fan or a Boston Celtics fan, and you look at your teams, really teetering on the edge of the 6 and 7 spot to try to flip the ties of that play-in tournament, something that you got to look at and say, okay, well, maybe this isn't necessary because these guys have played so many amount of games in so many seasons, and if that's the case, then there really shouldn't be any missed games or anything, Everyone should be healthy, this and that. But if they aren't healthy, and COVID is still a thing in the next couple of years, I like this idea of the play-in tournament. But if everyone stays healthy, if the teams in the play-in tournament didn't miss any amount of games this year or the year that they play, then I don't really think that the play-in tournament is really necessary. Because if you already have so many games to prove to yourself why you should be in the playoffs, why do you need a couple more? I mean, it just seems kind of weird, so to say. But I mean, it's definitely going to be interesting because while the play-in tournament certainly gives off an initiative that getting a top 6 seed to avoid having a play-in for a spot, it appears the league is ready to adopt it as its normal playoff format for future seasons. So as long as you're at that 6 seed, you're clear. So they also give a golden light for all this. As long as you're a top 6 seed, you're fine. But if you're not, then you're happy to be in the play-in tournament, or maybe you're not, and maybe you just want to be in the playoffs if you're that 7th or 8th seed. But it certainly does give more opportunity to the other teams. Like if you look at the Eastern Conference side, the Pacers, Wizards, Bulls, and Raptors will all be out of playoff contention if this play-in tournament wasn't the thing. And they would be clawing their way. Certain players would try to play games instead of sitting out injured or try to take some rest. But without a team like the Raptors or the Bulls would be so far away from that 8th seed. They're 3.5 games behind the Hornets for that 8th seed. So it will certainly be tough with 10 or less games in the season to try to mount that. But with that, the play-in tournament is definitely necessary in today's time with COVID and everything. I applaud the NBA for having this sort of system and really giving teams that should have an opportunity like the Wizards, Pacers, and company. But with that, if you're that 7th or 8th seed, I mean, you got to make sure you win those playing games, man. But with that, that's going to be it for the third segment. Next segment coming up will be my last segment, and I'm going to be trying to predict the top 12 players in this year's NFL draft and where they go, with Jacksonville Jaguars being the first team that I talk about, and then the Philadelphia Eagles being the last team I talk about. Stay tuned, as that will be coming up shortly here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
Hello and welcome to the final segment of today's GSMC Sports Podcast with your host, Nebyat Mamo. And we just talked about the NBA play-in tournament and what teams are currently safe, what teams are currently in the play-in tournament, and what teams are currently out of the play-in tournament on the Eastern Conference and Western Conference side. Obviously, if you are the 6th seed or higher, you are safe from the play-in tournament. But if you are seed 7 through 10, you are in the play-in tournament. And if you're out of the 10th spot, then you're not in the play-in tournament. And on the Eastern Conference side, it's very competitive with teams like the Raptors and Bulls being out of it and looking to get in with only a game behind the Washington Wizards. And then you have teams like the Heat who are trying to get out of the play-in tournament and really make sure they're safe in the playoffs and try to get to that 6th seed, as they're only a half game behind the Celtics for that 6th spot. Then if you look on the Western Conference side, it's not as competitive. There are many teams that are looking out to in. The only team is the New Orleans Pelicans. They're 4 games behind the Warriors. But with that, you also have Dallas as the 6th seed and the Blazers at the 7th seed. Blazers 1 game behind Dallas for that 6th seed. But with that, let's get into the final segment of today's GSMC Sports Podcast, and that is my NFL draft predictions for this year's draft. This year's draft will be on April 29th on ESPN. The draft, I believe, will start sometime at night. I believe it will be at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm just getting the date just so it's official for you folks, but the NFL draft date starts on Thursday, April 29th, begins at 8 p.m. and ends on Saturday, May 1st. All times are Eastern times again. But with that, let's get into these NFL draft predictions. So if you have paid attention to my previous episodes, you guys have a feel for what I believe will be the top 5 predictions in the NFL draft. I've been on the record talking about what quarterbacks will go where, what team really has the hardest pick in the draft, and what teams have traded and stuff like that. So with that, let's get into it. Let's start from bottom to top. I like doing that. So the 12th overall, or the 12th team in the NFL draft is the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, the San Francisco 49ers were 12th overall, but they traded with the Dolphins and the Eagles. So there was a 3-team trade between the Eagles, Dolphins, and 49ers. The Dolphins had the 3rd overall seed, or 3rd overall pick. The Niners had the 12th, and then the Eagles had the 6th. And with this, the Eagles now have the 12th overall spot from the Miami Dolphins via San Francisco 49ers. And I think that Jalen Waddle will be an excellent addition to this Philadelphia Eagles team. Now, with this Philadelphia Eagles team, you have obviously Jalen Hurts, who should be the starting quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles. It hasn't been confirmed yet, but I certainly expect Hurts to be the starter of that team, and if he is, I'm sure he will love having Jalen Waddle on his team. Some stats from Jalen Waddle, obviously a wide receiver for the Alabama Crimson Tide. Crimson Tide obviously coming off of a NCAA championship this past year. 2018, he's played 3 years in the NCAA and for NCAA football, college ball. In 2018 he had 45 receptions for 848 yards, averaged 19 yards per catch. Had 7 touchdowns total. 94 was his longest reception, and the year after that, he had 33 receptions, 560 yards. 17 was his average. Had 6 touchdowns, and his longest reception was 58 yards. And then in 2020, he had 28 receptions for 591 yards, 21 average yards, 4 touchdowns. Longest reception was 90 yards. And with this, I just wanted to remind you guys that the Crimson Tide also had Devontae Smith at this time. Devontae Smith obviously being the best wide receiver in college football last year, and probably is the best wide receiver in this NFL draft. Jalen Waddle recorded a 4.37 40 time. Former teammate, Waddle obviously, having that speed in his arsenal. Something will be something that I see it as a player. How should I say this? As a player comparison, I compare Jalen Waddle to Tyreek Hill. Now, with that topic, everyone knows how fast Tyreek Hill is, and we have to evaluate if Tyreek Hill is, or if Jalen Waddle is the type of speed that Tyreek Hill is. Does he have that explosiveness and everything? And I think that he definitely has the potential for that. Obviously, I'm not going to say he's faster than Tyreek Hill or anything, but I feel like that's a fair comparison to compare Waddle to Hill, especially after his 40 time and everything. I'm looking up Tyreek Hill 40 time. His 40 time was 4.29 seconds. Waddle's 40 time was 4.37 seconds. Only a couple second difference. I know in a sprint, a couple second difference is everything, but this guy's young. He's only 22 years old. Turns 23 in November. 5'10", 183. Basically has the same size and everything compared to Hill. Hill 5'10", 185. Very, very similar builds and everything, very similar times. And if you're the Philadelphia Eagles, you already missed out on Justin Jefferson last year. You can't miss out on another get on a wide receiver like Jalen Waddle, especially at the 12th spot, because I don't expect any teams 11 through 10 to pick him. So prime spot for Waddle right there at the 12th spot. Now, the next team is the New York Giants, sitting at number 11. The New York Giants, obviously, same division as the Philadelphia Eagles. Last year, weren't really close to playoff contention and everything like that. Obviously, that's why they're so high in the draft and everything. But with that, looking at their record last season, they had a pretty tough way to end the rest of their season. They had they had 10 losses on their record so they were 6-10 last season, obviously losing crucial games to Philadelphia, Dallas, and Cleveland, Baltimore, and company. But with this, I feel like they'll be pretty good with their. They'll be pretty good off. Excuse me, but they're. I feel like they're like Micah Parsons as a linebacker for them. So Micah Parsons, obviously, Penn State linebacker. Someone that I've heard. That the Bengals were kind of interested in him, but that quickly got diminished after Penny Sewell and Jamar Chase talks and everything. But looking at Micah Parsons' draft profile right now, out of the Big Ten, 6'2", 245, big man. He can really replicate linebackers like Luke Kuechly, for example, and really take certain teams to the next level. When you look at their the linebacker depth chart, not many recognizable linebackers on this linebacking core, and especially in a league or in a division where you have mobile quarterback, so to say, with Dak Prescott. You have obviously the Washington Redskins looking for a quarterback. You also have Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia, and then you also have Daniel Jones in the New York Giants. But Parsons won't have to worry about that. But with Parsons' speed and everything, I mean, Like I said, 6'3", 246, out of Penn State. Overview, he's a inside/outside linebacker. He's most impactful when he keeps calm and allowed to run and chase the action, but carries no physical limitations into the pros. His instincts and player recognition need to catch up with his physical gifts in order to play downhill and find the most effective routes to the football. His rush talent is a potential wild card and how teams decide to use him, but it's likely to show rapid improvement and should be a day one starter. And obviously his strengths, jarring production jump from freshman to sophomore season, sleek, well-defined frame with powerful lower half of his body, praised inside program for highly competitive nature. That will be great for any team to have. Elite range with bursts and speed, rarely seen at a linebacker position. And then has foot quickness and can change direction of a running back. Can overcome mental mistakes and with explosive athleticism. Size and strength to free himself from blocks, and athletic talent to handle man coverage duties. So you can keep him in man coverage, you can blitz him, you can do basically anything with him, but his weaknesses, he does need to improve on solo tackles, runs himself out of position with unnecessary early charges, quick to run rather than scrape with square pads, and needs to run free through the strike as a tackler, and stiff hands missed out on easy interceptions. But with all that, I think the Giants would absolutely love to have a player like Micah Parsons on their team, especially with their defense not being as great as it should be. But with that, I feel like the Giants would love to have a linebacker and a competitor like Parsons on their team. Then next up, you have the Denver Broncos, or I skipped the team. Next up, you have at the 10th spot, you have the Dallas Cowboys, and my pick for them is Patrick Surtain II. Now, Patrick Surtain, obviously, out of Alabama. One second here. Patrick Surtain II. Out of Alabama, and is a cornerback, 6'2", 208 pounds. Some of his strengths, finished with 38 consecutive starts for Alabama, elite physical traits with prototypical athleticism, technically proficient and trusts that technique, unwilling to flinch to overextend through press fakes and releases, gears up and down with synchronized timing to the receiver, fluid movement with early acceleration from transitions, long strides with choppy feet from 3-level coverage, shuts feet down instantly with two phase comebacks, and committed wrap tackler with finisher strengths. And some of his weaknesses, I would like to see more physicality, the slow playmakers across from him, will exchange and unnecessary hands-on downfield coverage. Had 6 penalties in 2019, including 4 pass interference calls. That's something to definitely look at, especially at the pro scale, because of the difference between pro and college. Pro pass interference calls, you put the ball where the pass interference was called, and then obviously in college you only get a 15-yard penalty for a PI. And then for also some more stuff on certain rides on high side when phasing route at times, has opportunities to squeeze routes even tighter when he can do it safely, and big wide receivers fought back fought back him near goal line. So with that, I mean, he's in the division where you're not really going to go against, or if he gets drafted by the Cowboys, he's not going to be in the division where you're facing against, bigger wide receivers, so to say. He might play like a Julio Jones, so to say, or a Larry Fitzgerald, a DeAndre Hopkins and company, DK Metcalf, etc. But with that, I mean, the Cowboys desperately need some defense on that team, just like the Giants as well. But with that, Patrick Surtain, for me, I think he's a Cowboy. Now, for the Denver Broncos, I have them with Rashawn Slater. Slater being an offensive tackle out of Northwestern. One of the best offensive tackles in the draft behind Penny Sewell. Slater is 6'4", 304 pounds. Just an overview or some of his strengths. Frame is compact and muscular with good lean mass. Reps against Ohio State, Chase Young's were very impressive when Young was at Ohio State. Confident in claiming his turf and heads up battles. Possesses excellent core strength with contact balance. Big hands, can snatch into opponents' frames. Runs with choppy feet through his blocks. Smooth lateral flow coming off the ball. Upper body allows for quick separation after punch. Quick response to inside shots. And has all kinds of recovery athleticism. Some of his weaknesses, on the other hand, some teams seem to have an inside player only because of arm length. Allows some separation at the punch point due to lack of length. Needs to play with better knee bend in space. Slight inconsistencies maintaining inside hands in a pass pro. Hands right a little too high on down blocks, causing him to lose power, and has some issues getting pad level low in short yardage situations. But people say that he's going to be a starter for a lot of years. Smart kid and very reliable. So with that, I think that the Broncos would absolutely love a player like that. Obviously, them being in a rebuilding phase would certainly help them. And not much for the Broncos, in my opinion. I mean, they really don't have that much talent on the team. They have a Jerry Jeudy, for example, but they still need a lot more in order to be a contender or a playoff team, for example. And then next up, you have the Carolina Panthers. I have them taking Zach Wilson. Next up, the Detroit Lions, I have them taking Jamar Chase. The Miami Dolphins, I have them taking Devontae Smith. And then the top 5 picks, I've said on the record that I think the Bengals will pick Penny Sewell. The Falcons will pick Kyle Pitts. The 49ers will pick Mac Jones. The Jets will pick Justin Fields. And then the Jacksonville Jaguars will pick Trevor Lawrence. Now, with this, let's talk about who has the hardest pick in the draft. I think it's the Bengals. You either have to pick between Penny Sewell, Devontae Smith, or Jamar Chase. And that's not easy. Some of my Bengals fans and I have been on the record saying that we hope that those guys get picked before we have the chance to pick. So it's just easier for us to choose between those guys. But I think that the Miami Dolphins will have the biggest steal in the draft with Devontae Smith. Just obviously, I think that he's the best wide receiver in the draft. Obviously, Jamar Chase has a tough resume to go against as well. But with Smith, I mean, he's once in a generational talent, and I think that he will be great. His size doesn't really faze me at all. Chad Ochocinco, Chad Johnson for the Cincinnati Bengals was like that, and he turned out to be a stud for us. But with that, that will be it for the GSMC Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Nebyat Mamo, and I would just like to thank you for listening to the GSMC Sports Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, that will also be very appreciated. Thank you, and have a great rest of your day.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.